Okay. This one. Okay. This is in the daily outlines link. Oh, by the way, Ariel is our TA for this week. So if you have any questions, feel free to hit her up in the chat, and she should be able to help you from there. Adjust my camera so I can see you all. Okay, here we go. So first of all, welcome back. Hopefully you had a nice week off. Hopefully you were able to use that time not only for the New York Times project, but for your capstones. I will be loading in grades for New York Times and for capstones tomorrow. So you guys should have some feedback on all of that. Couple logistics things. No class on Thursday this week for OpenHack. OpenHack is at Common Space at 6 p.m. Hopefully I will see you guys there. Attendance, as always, is optional, but highly recommended, not required. We've got two guest speakers coming up. On Wednesday, we've got Amanda coming in talking about the data industry. Hopefully you guys have had a taste through the New York Times of how much data is out there. And it's kind of amazing when you think about bestsellers lists, right? You think, oh, that's a couple books. How much data can there really be? And you get into Amazon product URLs and the order of the lists and how often the lists are updated and all kinds of crazy information that the New York Times provides us. Well, that is an entire industry. So Amanda is coming in on Wednesday. She will be our guest speaker. And then on Monday of next week, Glenn will be coming in. Glenn has presented, I believe, at for every cohort. And he's talking about entrepreneurial employment, talking about how you can kind of do freelance work, the pros and the cons of it, some information there for you. While I'm going through the rest of this information, we do have two forms that we need you to fill out. This is related to our AEI funding. So because of that, if you guys could just spend a couple minutes filling these forms out, it shouldn't take you more than 3 minutes to fill them out. Again, this is the reason why you can go through this program for free. So not a ton of information that we're asking for there. We anonymize all the data, so none of this is published tied directly to your name. We do publish this data, but it's not ever tied to your particular form submission or your name. So if you guys could spend a couple minutes filling out both of those forms, that would very much be appreciated, because otherwise I need to come hunt you down tomorrow, and that is less fun for me. So take a minute, fill out those forms. I'm going to take a breather, make sure if you have any questions, let me know. Just give me a thumbs up and a Zoom reaction when you've got it done. So both of them done, so I know when to keep going. Actually, you know what? I'm going to start a poll. So go ahead and vote in the Zoom poll once you have completed those forms. One more minute to fill out the forms and then we will keep going. Don't forget to vote in the Zoom poll if you haven't already, as soon as you get that form, both of those forms submitted.
Hey Max, I have a question.
Shoot.
So all of the links for like the previous projects that we worked on are on GitHub, but like are they listed under name of the project? I don't know, I haven't checked over there yet.
No, they're not, but there is a good cheat for that. So if you head over to Canvas, and of course I'm not signed in because why would I be? It's been 3 weeks. Give me 1 second to sign in. If you go to the schedule and YouTube links, which is the third option in Canvas, when you pop that open, you'll see that all of the project names are loaded into the spreadsheet all the way up to the stuff that we're doing today with like the React Playground and WoW. And then the date code is on here, right? So it says week 13, day 1. So if you go back to Canvas and pop open the C5 My Code GitHub, you can cross-reference that with the information from in here, right? So you can say, okay, week 9, day 1 was the JS blog. So if you go to week 9 and day 1 in here, you'll see it's all of the JS blog stuff that we're doing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Good question. Everyone good on the forms? Thank you guys for filling that out. Okay, couple other logistics things going on. We have 2 back-to-back network events coming up. So yes, Open Hack this Thursday at 6. We have an Erie 21 networking event coming up on Wednesday, 7/26, and then a Careers and Code happy hour on Thursday, the 27th. So we will not be having class either of those nights. The Erie 21 networking event will be on Lemoyne's campus. It will be in the same building that the presenter was in for New York State when they came from New York State to give the Department of IT. It will be kind of in that lobby area and probably spilling outside of that same building. So 2 major networking events coming up. It is not Greenwin Hall, Natasha. It's like the building before Greenwin Hall. If you are in the auditorium we were in for kickoff, it's kind of the building between Greenwin and that auditorium. I think it's called the Science Center or the Science Edition, SCA, the Science Edition. I don't have a link on here for the actual networking event. I will get that over to you guys. I think it's posted in the Slack channel, but a couple tips for you. One, if you have not thought about business cards, that is definitely something to think about now. Vistaprint is a big company that prints them, and they normally have about 2 weeks lead time. So I have linked to my business cards blog post here in case you are interested in some tips and tricks. If you have any questions about your design or would like me to review them, feel free to send that over to me. You can also get them printed at Staples and pick them up like the next day, or you can even print them out yourself. You do not need to go top of the line for your business card, but you're going to be there networking, right? You're going to want to connect with other people. And business cards, shockingly, are still the standard for when you meet someone, being able to hand that over. I do know some people have a QR code that they hand them to scan, or they say, oh, look me up on LinkedIn. You will definitely want to have a notebook for that networking event because you're going to meet people. You're going to want to look them up and and connect with them after the event. Business cards are the best way to go about that. You will not need to have a copy of your resume, but just something to think about planning in advance. And then the next day, we will have our Careers in Code happy hour. So that is not only open to you guys, it is open to former students, and it is open to the entire Hack Upstate network. So we just posted about that on our social media, on our LinkedIn. We posted it on meetup.com. The link to the meetup is here in case you have any questions, but there will be food and drink down at Maxwell's. If anyone would like to be able to make it to that but cannot, feel free to post in the CI's, cannot get there due to transportation. Sorry, I'm not finishing a thought. If you need a ride, post in the CIC C5 channel, not in the back channel, because there's a very good chance that I can pick you up on the way in wherever you live and give you a ride to that. So that will be, sorry, this is the wrong, 7/27 is a Thursday, not a Wednesday. 7/26 is, oh, hold on, I gotta check my dates. Um, 26 is, okay, so these are wrong. 7/25 is Tuesday, 7/25. Laura will be in class. Okay, yes, this is correct. So on Tuesday of that not next week, but the following week, Laura will be in class to answer any questions that you have about networking, because we've got lots of back-to-back networking events going on here. So watch Career Module 3 before Tuesday, 7/25, if you haven't already. The due date has passed on that. If you have not seen that networking video, make sure you do that. Laura will be in class on Tuesday to answer any questions that you have about networking. On Wednesday, we have the actual Erie 21 networking event. And then on Thursday, we have the Careers in Code happy hour down at Maxwell's. So Tuesday class is in person. I'm sorry, Tuesday class is, I have to check the schedule. Okay, Monday and Tuesday, class is virtual. Tuesday, Laura will be in virtually to answer any questions that you have about networking. Wednesday will be on Lemoyne's campus for the Erie 21 networking event. Thursday, we will have alcohol and drinks at Maxwell's Bar downtown at 6 p.m. Any questions about any of that? Because I just confused myself throughout all of that. I will also update the spreadsheet with all of that information, so it is all there. And the daily outlines, of course, are linked in Canvas, which is what I am sharing. Alcohol, drinks, and food. There's pizza, shrimp, and I think wings on the menu. So we've got it all booked. Okay. Reminder to everyone, we have reached the point where I need to see your faces in order to know how class is going. So it's okay if you've got a one-off, if you're like, hey, I've got something going on, and you run to the bathroom or whatever. You don't need to give us an excuse there. If you need an excuse for a day or two of, hey, something's going on, I can't have my camera on, that's fine. Shoot me and the TA a message, because the TA for the week, Ariel this week, is the one who does all of the attendance checking. But you will not be marked present if you are in the Zoom room and have your camera off for the majority of class, unless you give us an excuse. That will be tied not only to your stipend funds, but also looking at academic warning and that kind of stuff. So really, really appreciate you guys having your cameras on. Makes it so much easier for me to teach, because the material does not get any easier. The good news is the material at this point, though, you're over that JavaScript hump, right? Everything that we are doing here on out, the exception of SQL, is all JavaScript. It's using that syntax that you guys have struggled with for so long. We just keep on building on top of that now. So the first half of the program, some people say it is easier. I don't think that's the case. I think the first half of the program is actually harder because there's all that little syntax stuff. It's rewiring your brain to think like a developer. Now that you have done that, the second half of the class, I think, is easier because you're already connected to the computer. You already are understanding how it's working. So I think the second half of the class is actually easier and more fun, but that's just my personal take on it. Tell me at week 24 that I'm totally wrong and that the second half is actually much harder, but we'll save that for what's coming up. Coming down the pipeline, we've got React, which is all front-end oriented. It is how can we make data integrate into our websites easier, making them a web app. That's what we're starting now. Then we dive into SQL databases, right? How do we store this information? And then we finish it up with Node, which is how do we build our own APIs? We've seen how we can use someone else's API. Wouldn't it be cool if we could build our own? Then we wrap the whole program up with Nathan coming back for DevOps of how to deploy your full stack applications. And we finish it off with Laura's career week before we reach week 24, which is all about capstone. So the final week of the program, do not worry. We're not shoving anything new in your brains. We are only focused on getting your capstones over the finish line. With all of that said, we are going to dive into our capstone presentations. So I will give you guys an out if you would like it. If you are feeling behind, you are welcome to schedule a one-on-one with me this week, and then you do not have to present tonight. I do not encourage that, however. If you want to make a run on my Calendly link, you can go do that right now, but you can only do this one time. So next time, you have to present in front of the group. And the reason why we do that is because you are going to have to present at graduation. That fear of public speaking is natural. Almost everyone feels that, getting up on the stage, getting nervous. You presenting to your other peers is letting them give you feedback, right? Is letting them see where you are in your project compared to where they are in their project. Everyone is going to be at a different stage. So I am giving you the one-time option. You cannot do this next check-in if you take it on this one, but you can book a one-on-one with me if you would not like to present in front of everyone. Not encouraging that, but giving you that as an option. Where should you be for your capstone at this check-in? Your capstone at this point, you should be able to show off the HTML, the CSS, and maybe just a little bit of the JavaScript. You don't need that. JavaScript's optional. But at this point, your HTML and CSS should be done enough that when you show off your project, all of the other students can understand what your project is without needing an explanation. What you should be able to do at this point is show off your project and have another end user go, all right, it's not fully done, and there might be a couple more pages or a couple little styling tweaks we need to do, and none of it's working. You can't really post a comment. You can't really log in yet. You can't do anything with it. But with the pages alone, do I understand the point of your capstone? Do I understand what you are building? That is what we are shooting for. If you are not at that point, your capstone check-in grade for this week may be a little bit lower. The good news is you can always resubmit in Canvas your capstone check-in, your capstone progress as you go, or schedule a one-on-one with me, even if you present tonight, once you are making that progress, and I can go back in and readjust your grade. So your grade is not permanent at this point. There are a lot of you who have realized, I got started on my capstone idea. It was really ambitious, and now I want to scale it back or change it. That is okay for this check-in. The next check-in, that's when the red lights go on, when we go, what do you mean you don't have anything built? What do you mean you changed your idea? So, any questions about where we should be in general before we dive into the check-in?
I'm sorry if I missed this. Are we supposed to have like some functionality ready or just pages linked? at this point.
Just pages linked in general, we should be able to understand your project without needing too much of an explanation, right? If you have some JavaScript functionality, that's great. Hopefully at this point, you're seeing what JavaScript can do, you're seeing what APIs can do, and you're starting to say, now I've got my next steps of what I need to do in my JavaScript, but you don't need to have it done yet. So if you do want to include that, that's a really good idea of not just here's where I'm at, but what is next on your roadmap? What is next in your to-do list? Because oftentimes we get to a certain point and we're like, oh, how to make any of this work. That is okay. That is why we have these capstone check-ins. It is totally fine. I'm going to go through the list. I don't have my Calendly open. I'm sure I just got about 14 booking notifications. So if I call on you and you have already booked, just say skip, or I booked with you, or I'm doing a one-on-one or whatever. That's totally fine. Natasha, what's up?
Max, can you tell us about the grading system for like pushing our capstone check-in back?
You will, couple things. If you're totally absent for the check-in and have not booked, you'll get a 0. If you have scheduled with me for sometime this week, then I will leave your grade not entered, so it won't impact your grade, and then we'll give you the grade at the capstone, at the one-on-one that you've scheduled. Or if you present tonight, you'll get whatever grade you get from presenting.
I don't know if I'm ready for a full presentation then, because I don't want to risk having a lower grade if there's an option to do a one-on-one. So
you can
I'll pick you
always
up on that.
resubmit it. So even if you present tonight, there will be an option in Canvas to upload your progress as you go, and then I will boost your grade from there. So nothing is in
nice.
cement. I would encourage you to present tonight, even if you're feeling a little behind, because you can always resubmit your progress or schedule a one-on-one with me, and I can go back and update your grades from there.
Okay.
Allie, what's up?
Sorry, I have like I have like the windows on the side, so I have to like switch between them. But are we going in like a certain order, or can I
I randomized the order last time, so we'll probably go in that same order if that's okay with everyone.
Okay.
Cool. Mo, what's up?
Oh, I was just volunteering to go first so I can get it out the way.
Oh, sure, go for it. We don't have to go in the
Wait,
order
did
that
you
I've got.
just say Mo? Where have you been, sir?
Listen, I talked to Max. I had like a lot of life happening, some stuff.
No, I wasn't expecting a real answer. I'm just saying I thought you dropped out for this class.
No. I just had some real serious situations, but I've been tapped in though still. So
Understood. Welcome back.
oh, thank you.
All right, let me stop sharing my screen so you can share yours.
All right, cool. So you want me to show my code or my actual what I'm doing? Well, it's already here, so
Lean more towards the browser, and that goes for everyone.
All right, so I changed the idea for my project. First, I was doing a playlist, kind of an app thing. What I end up doing is something still musical based. It's going to be a silent party that's cannabis enthused. So I know a lot of people who obviously deal in like the business of cannabis and music, and silent discos are really popular. So the goal is to create a silent disco, like people bring their own, own flower or whatever the case may be. And it's more like a networking community event based around cannabis. So far, I'm going to put some B-roll, like a B-roll video in here of like shots I found of like different musical cannabis type themes. This is my logo. It's going to be called Quiet Stone. My about page does work. Obviously, I got to fix the CSS in here. But this would be an about page. My events page is kind of live, where you can kind of choose between the different playlists you want. So that you'll make a deposit, and then you'll get like your headphone choice in there. So I kind of bit that from the movie theater idea we did. Contact page and merch page doesn't work yet. And then you'll have an account page up here searching the site for merch, and then like in a shopping cart for when you actually purchase the event and stuff like that. So that's as far as we got so far.
Cool. Good progress. Keep on fleshing out, what that headphones page looks like. You might want to add some explanation to that as well for, what's the user doing here, or, looking at that grid of headphones, what's that showing me, or what am I supposed to select? Good work on the design. You've got all of the structure there. Now we just want to focus in a little bit more on that page content, but it seems like you've got everything well planned out. So you're on the right track. Just push a little bit more for getting content, and thinking through user flow, right? What's the first thing the user sees? What am I asking them to do? All right, once they hit continue, what comes next? So keep on working on that, but good progress, and you got a good structure so far.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Would anyone else like to go and get it out of the way? Just go ahead and raise your hand. Jen, go for it. You're on mute, Jen, I think.
So I got the homepage done. I got my login button working. I got the email working. Oh, maybe I didn't. Or I just can't spell password right. And then I got the login page to where if you log in the right password and everything, it brings you to the homepage. I haven't set the homepage up yet, but I also have a create account page set up, and I haven't gotten all that done. So it just brings you back to the homepage if you push the create account. That's about
Very
it.
nice.
Thank you.
So up next is homepage for you.
Oh, I'm gonna keep sharing. I thought I was done.
Oh, no, you're fine. I'm just saying, is what's on your to-do list? What are you focusing on?
My to-do list is to style the new account. Let me share it because I kind of wanted to show you. So I got stuck somewhere. I can't, let me figure it out. Oh, my next step is to get the create account working and the homepage working. Put the homepage up. I want to do different links on the homepage as well. Go into different pages and just style the whole thing out too. But the create account just jumps right back to this page because I didn't get to a create account page yet. So I just jumped it back to the homepage.
I would say lean more into your homepage than the login system, because the login system we're going to learn in the second half of class of the program, not this particular class, how to do database authentication and password encryption.
Cool.
So you can style the create account because that form won't change much, but we'll learn how to push past local storage and dive into password hashing and storing users in the database and API calls and all of that fun stuff. So I would say put that kind of on pause, except for maybe the styling, and then focus in on your dashboard or your homepage. And then don't be afraid to use dummy data, right? Because we still may be playing around with APIs or figuring out what data we can pull in or that kind of stuff. But think about, what data do I eventually want to show in there? That's what I would focus in on building now. And then from there, we can always layer in the actual real APIs and getting the data to show up and all of that fun stuff.
Okay, I was wondering about that because I'm how do I keep going if part of the big thing is putting in APIs? I don't know what APIs I'm putting in yet and all that good stuff. How do I get past that? But if we have dummy APIs, that would be really cool to throw
It
those. in
won't
there.
even be a dummy API, it'll just be dummy data, right? So kind of build out the HTML as if that data were coming in from an API, and then we can, through one-on-ones, work through, hey, this is the site, here's where I want to pull the data, this is what I want it to look like, can I do that?
Okay. Yeah, and I just wanted to add like logout buttons and stuff like that to the homepage as well.
Cool. Yeah, I would, like I said, I would focus in on that homepage, and then the authorization stuff, the authentication stuff, and the pulling in the APIs. That's all coming down the pipeline.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Good work.
Thanks.
Allie, go for it.
Yay, okay, thanks. All right, so trying to figure out, should I share this? Okay. Okay, if it doesn't come out right, I'll just redo it. But let me move this over here.
I think you shared only your VS Code screen, so we won't be able to see the browser.
Oh, okay. Okay, hold on. This is so confusing the way I did this. Let me see if I could just really quick word it. Okay, yup, and then I have to do it. Oh, wait, why didn't this? The heck? Okay, I'm having some technical difficulty, so
Okay,
back in.
Max, can I just go next? I just gotta get this out the way.
go for it.
This past week has been crazy. Let's just do it. All right. Okay, so hold on, let me pull up my PPM so I can explain to you guys. Share my screen. 1 second. Okay. All right, let's share the screen. Okay, oops. All right, oh, that's my New York Times. All right, so my project is called, oh, this is New York Times, 1 second. My project is called Unity Scope, and it's about eliminating inequality. Okay, let me just show you how it looks, what I have so far. I just got done banging my head on the keyboard trying to add a geoscope so people can actually pinpoint locations, but I've been able to create a map so far. I'm gonna zoom and show you guys what I have. It's actually the whole world, but you can zoom in. I've added longitude, latitude, and thanks to Jason, I now have access to ArcGIS. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, just take a deep breath. So as you can see, I have the map, and basically with my project, the purpose of my project is to create an interactive web application that will visually represent data on racial inequality, crime rates, missing people, resource availability, and various other societal factors across the US and hopefully within the world, but I probably won't have time to add in all those data sets. Okay, so we're working on the US. The project will involve various different designs, development, and deployment of web applications, and it will have the following key features. I'm trying to have a map interface to visualize the data at various levels of granularity, such as national, state, and local, as I mentioned. I want the user interaction to have capabilities to really drill down into data points and layers. So let's say, for instance, you're part of a vulnerable group. And you want to move to a different location in the US, but you need to know the statistics on job employment, equal opportunity employers. Maybe you might be LGBTQT, excuse me, I'm just a little nervous, guys, sorry. LGBTQIA+, or maybe you may be Black, Asian, white, or whatever. And you may want to know the crime statistics in the neighborhood. Are you employable in that neighborhood? Is that neighborhood right for you? You'll be able to utilize this map to see where you'll best fit so you can be the most successful in your life. When I wrote all this down. And again, excuse me, guys, I'm just highly nervous right now. So what I'm going to do is I am going to find those reliable data sources. For demographic information, I'm thinking about using maybe like a US Census Bureau API. For crime statistics, consider using like FBI crime data APIs, missing persons, you know, national missing and unidentified person system, like NamUs or something like that. What else did I write down? For my data retrieval system, I will be writing scripts using the node.js that Max taught us. Okay. To fetch and update data from the sources regularly so people can get like real-time data. Okay. What else did I write down? Okay, I'll be using libraries such as I just recently learned about underscore.js. I don't know too much. I don't know too much quite yet. All right, developing the application. So setting up this project, I'm just learning ArcGIS and Mapbox. I did utilize Mapbox as well. Hold on one second. So yeah, I'll be using React once we learn it to help me organize my project and, you know, get a sensible folder structure, develop the map, etc. Stop me at any time because I've written a lot of stuff down.
Yeah, so you don't need a formal presentation here. It's funny that
Okay,
you were
I did
zoomed
a
in there
formal
because I
presentation.
actually grew up right here.
Right there. Okay. Let me just
So
move that back up. Hold on. There we go.
so what do you think your next steps are?
So my goal, well, literally, and the reason why I was a little tardy today, I've been looking at so many different videos on how to complete this. And actually to even get to this point, I'm not gonna lie to you, YouTube has been my best friend. Okay.
So I'm gonna come off a little arrogant here, and I'm gonna say
Yes.
those are all wrong.
Okay. Okay.
Here's my advice, and here's why I say that.
And just to answer your question, my next step is to have at least one data set, at least one.
So that's where my advice is. So I would
Yeah.
say getting this working is huge, right? Because you tackled the JavaScript, you read through a ton of documentation. This is your groundwork, right? Because all of your data is going to be so map driven that getting this working, hugely important. But before you dive into any of the data sets, what I would recommend is focusing in on that user interaction tab, because
Yes.
what we're seeing now is a map. And what you want to get to eventually is visualizing those data sets on the map. And that's going to be, you know, probably the hardest part of your project. So if you dive right into how do I get that data set to show up, that's going to be pretty challenging, especially as we're continuing to learn about databases and all of that stuff. But if you say, hey, that's the destination, that's not necessarily the journey. What's the next step on the journey? It's going to be that user interaction tab, right? Of thinking through what's that interface that users can click on these different things and see the data sets, or what do they interact with in order to be able to visualize that on the map. So that would be my advice to you, is before you do a deep dive into any of the data sets, start thinking about what that user interaction screen looks like. Does that take up the right third of the screen and then the map is on the right? Is that user interaction screen a separate page and then they hit the save button and it takes them to the map? What does that interface look like? That's what I would focus on building next. It doesn't have to work. It doesn't have to pull in the data sets, but that to me is going to say, oh, now I understand what data sets you're trying to pull in, and I understand why I would want to use this site in the first place. And I think that that's going to ease you into the complexity of pulling in those data sets next.
Yes, and you know what? I have that on my wireframe, the different pages, what side of the screen I want the legend on. next check-in, I'm gonna have that scanned and uploaded if I'm not able to complete a full visual presentation for you all by that time, so you guys can have a better understanding of what I am trying to accomplish.
Yeah,
But
it's tough because some capstone projects look like nothing until the last week, and then all of a sudden they're like, whoa, oh my God, this is amazing. I think you have
Yeah.
one of those projects, right? Where
I definitely do.
getting those data sets integrated is going to be difficult. But if you just pump the brakes on that a little bit and say, okay, what is the interface that is going to bring me to those data sets and visualize those data sets? That's going to make that project feel a little bit more tangible. You're going to see the progress on that, and then you can ease your way into the data sets.
Okay. Quick question, and since Jason is in class, he did give me information about Mark, who is familiar with S3 and mapping. Would that be the person that I could utilize to help me with this geocode? Because I keep on putting it into Postman and it's returning that, hold on, let me show you what I'm using. So this is what I'm trying to get. And I keep on getting no authorized, not authorized, no token. And I'm like, maybe I need to just create a whole new token, access token through Mapbox for it.
How are you passing the token into Postman?
Second.
Hallie, I see your hand raised. You up? You ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Go for it.
Okay, I'm kind of nervous, but let's get into it. All right, and I fixed this, so I think that it'll work. Let me see. Okay, yeah. Let me see, accept. Can you guys see both of these?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and open up my homepage. Okay, so I changed my project sometime like last week. I was having a discussion with my cousin and I'm like, let me do this. So what I wanted to do was I'm an avid reader and I really like reading. So I'm like, what can I do for the community? Something tech oriented that'll help people. So I know that they gave like the kids a bunch of laptops during COVID and stuff, and that they have them for the kids to sign out every year. So what I wanted to do was they have the summer reading assignment, and I wanted to build a website that the kids could go on and they'll be able to actually do their assignments through the website and then have a place where that data gets collected, and then maybe collaborate with the school in a way that like they will be able to get the data from the students so that when they come back to school, they just have that stuff. So this is my homepage right here. See, I got my little SCSD logo up in the corner. And it basically has the information for the summer reading assignments, the book list. Now I have my buttons here, but they don't work yet. And what I'm going to do here is add the links. Now, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do here. I'm not going to go too much into it because I kind of had two different ideas of where this could go. Google has like some APIs on the books where I could link the book here and the kids would be able to read them, which I don't think it'll be, I'm not sure if that's something that everybody will be able to access. So what I was thinking was add a map API where they'll be able to see which libraries have those books so they can check them out from the summer based on their location in the city, which I think might be a little bit easier. And I do want to get the website launched before school starts back up again. So I'm trying to just keep it simple. But I do want to show you guys. So my button here works. So I'm going to go back to home so you guys can see it again. But over here in my material section, there's a book report graphic organizer that I created for the students. And they can come in, put in their name, put mine real quick. And then the date, which I'm going to get that formatted so they can just input the date automatically. And then what they can do is come in, and I have the presets for the forms. They can come in, title and author, main characters. Basically what they have to do is just give a little feedback about the books that they read. letting their teachers know exactly like that they read it, that they understand, or that they actually did it over the summer. And what I want to be able to do is have it so they can submit as many of these forms as they want. And what I'm also going to do is add like an account structure so that they can create accounts as students and then just have it linked like that. And another thing that I'm trying to get like with the collabing with the school is maybe having them be able to use like their SCSD logins for the summer. That way, everything could just get sent right to the school district. And then I have my little submit button, which doesn't work over here yet, but
So awesome progress so far, right? This is something where we can look at this project and go, I get this, right? If I handed this over to anyone in the Syracuse City School District, they would understand what this is at. So this is totally what we want to be shooting for, right? We don't have every page fully created yet, but that's okay. We don't need that at this point. This is what we're shooting for though, of can I get the general interface? Where I want you to think about focusing in next is, what does the teacher screen look like? How can the teacher see all of the submissions? And so if you want to think about that, think about the blog project. The blog project shows the blogs on the homepage, but what happens when I actually hit that sign in button, right? What does the teacher what can the teacher see from all of the submissions? So that's what I want to see you focusing in on next. I love the idea of showing the map locations. For the same reason I'm telling Rain to pump the brakes on that, I'm going to tell you to pump the brakes on that, right? Because we can add in the JavaScript. That's a great idea. I want to see that in the final version. But think about, okay, what does that login screen look like? Don't let Syracuse City School District thinking about how you integrate with their login stop you. Build that login page, think about what it looks like for the student, which I think you already have in your form, but then also think about what happens when that form is submitted. What does it look like for the teacher to be able to review that information? And I think that's what you'll want to focus in on next. But you nailed this check-in. The idea is there. We can see it. You've got pages linked. We get the idea. Now it's just a matter of finishing out the couple last of those pages so that when we get into the APIs, we can make it all save in the database.
okay.
Awesome work.
Thank you.
Amberlynn, you're up next.
Well, all right. Okay, this is my project. I'm doing a floral forecast, and I have links down here with why it would be a good idea to be a floral gardener or flower farmer, because like 80% of flowers are imported, and a lot of that money can stay here in America. And the links work. There's a login area, and then you can go over to a growing calendar and pick your last frost date and pick a date. You can pick a season you're looking for flowers.
I believe the
Center
first frost
shade.
date and the last frost date in Syracuse are about 3 days apart.
True. And the height you'd like, and then all that information will bring in data from the open data source. I found a botany open data source, Ariel shared, and all that information will pop up over here. And then there's a submit button, and it'll bring you over to the other page where it will pop up into a calendar. And I was researching React calendars and just came across one. So I'm looking forward to learning more about React and using that too.
Awesome. Another great example. You're hitting all the nails on the head. You're at that point where you've done everything that you can do in your basic HTML, and now you're ready for the next steps, right? You're ready to make it interactive. You're ready to get that JavaScript code in there. So that's where we want you to be in your project. So really awesome work.
Thank you.
And I know you've got more features. I'm going to cut you off because you already checked the
That's
boxes
okay.
for the check-in. But yeah, start thinking about, okay, you know, now that I've got that data, or now that I've got that data source, can I get the data that I want showing up in Postman, or can I start making those fetch calls and seeing if I can get that in my JavaScript console, and starting to take those next steps. But totally hit the nail on the head for everything here.
Thank you.
Danny, you're up.
All right, here we go. Boop. All right, so this is my homepage. And we go into my decks. I can click on these links. I'll bring you to a PDF of the cards you want to look at. And then we go to our links page. This one will take you to any information you want to know about tarot if you don't know anything yet.
Okay.
Oof, let me get this to go back. There you go. I have my profiles page, which you can type stuff in. Just can't go anywhere yet because I haven't built an API for the data.
Okay.
And my next step is where I want to be able to make you be able to get tarot cards pulled. So I have to figure out how to get that randomized. So that is my next big thing to do.
So I would say you break that up into 2 steps, right? Because if you dive into the JavaScript part of that, you may lose sight of getting it to work in the interface. So I would say build the interface first, and once you get that interface built, submit that back in Canvas, and I can bump your grade back up. Because right now, this is all feeling like a website up until that register point. And now it's like, all right, we're teetering on an app, but I don't quite get the full app idea yet. And I think when you can pull those cards, even if you don't have it working, just seeing that interface of what does the user click on? How does the card display, right? What do they do next? You don't have to get any of that working, but just having that interface there will bump you right over that line of, oh, now I totally get why I would use your site and what kind of information I want to save and all of that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
I had found a randomizer, but it just said like the name of the card. So I was trying to figure that out before this, but I had not had the time. So
totally fine. Don't worry too much about the how does it work side. Just get the what does it look like side done first. And whenever you do it in that order, the look like oftentimes will clear roadblocks of how to get it to work, if that makes sense at all.
yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Brandy, go for it.
Okay. Sure. Okay, I have to open it first. All right. Is it showing the thing?
You're
The
good,
what?
yes.
Okay, cool. I have a website with linked pages, please. I do not like presenting things. Okay, it is designed to be a reference site for American Sign Language for like low-level learners. It's not meant to like replace like interpreters or anything like that. But it's a website that can be used for like anyone to learn like super basic things. So I have the ABCs. I still need to do most of this. And I have to change the volume to 0, but I have videos of certain like phrases. I have it set up so that
this is like, you can select a phrase and it will pop up with the video. And I also have a make a request form, which I need to finish, and a contact thing. I have a search thing, but it doesn't do anything yet.
So another great example of where we want you to be, right? Everything's not done, numbers pages needs a little work, all of that's fine. Where I think where you want to be thinking about next is, hey, that make a request form, when it gets submitted, I need to be able to see that as an administrator, right? Like I want to be able to go in, see what information was submitted, and maybe I want to be able to like mark the request as complete, or maybe I want to say just delete this one, right? So I think all the screens you have are great. I think you need just one more for the administrator to be able to see the requests as they come in and be able to like delete them or mark them as complete. But outside of that, this has everything in it, especially for where we want to be for this check-in. So awesome job. Don't know that there's a to-do list. There is always a to-do list on a project, but this is meeting all the requirements of the capstone. I would say get that admin screen done. Just think through, you know, sketch that out, wireframe that out. Keep going on the other stuff that you want to keep adding, but those little things, right, of clicking on the button and getting a video to show up, like we've crossed the HTML threshold and are now in the world of JavaScript. And that will be fun because now you can go, oh, well, I got this working in my JavaScript. How do I get it working in React? And so that will be coming down the pipeline, but awesome work. This is something where I'm like, if I signed into your site today, I could be like, I get this, right? I get the request. I get seeing the library of things, like everything clicks, everything makes sense there. So just keep up the good work.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Would anyone else like to volunteer as tribute?
I would.
Whoever said I would, raise your hand. Sequota, go for it. And I saw someone else pop up and then lower their hand too. So keep your hand raised if you are volunteering to go. Shay, I'll come to you next.
Alrighty, so I started over completely.
Okay.
So one of the things I was thinking about more of, about like finding a therapist, excuse the misspelled words, but finding a therapist. And so I know I would need to do, well, actually doing the New York Times made me really think about like how it would be cool to be able to click on something and just have like, be able to find therapists locally. So I have like a list that like my friend owns, she's a therapist, so she has this list that I just send out to people. So I figure when we learn how to build APIs, I can take the information that I already have here and sort of put that into some way here. And then I wanted to do this grief talk session. There's nothing in it now, but where people can submit like questions, and then like as opposed to doing a blog, like people submit like questions or something that they would like a post to be made about. So I'm gonna come up with some kind of form that people can fill out here. And based on what you just said to Brady, I'm gonna need an admin thing. And yeah, so that's currently, I think that's my next step to.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I would say don't let what you don't know to prevent you from working on it, right? Because like you can build the grief talk section and be like, all right, the homepage is going to show the questions. And then when I click on the question, it's going to have maybe a thread, right, of different people who have responded to it. Well, we don't know how to make that work so you can hit the save button and have it show up on the page yet, but we know how to build the form and we know how to make the HTML make it show the different thread responses that we're coming up with, right? So the same goes for this find a therapist page, where it's like, okay, yeah, we don't want to build the whole page out and type in all the information, but maybe I'm going to think about what's the table look like? And is there a search button, or is there some way to filter down and say, oh, I'm looking for couples counseling compared to, or maybe I want to search by a certain area, right? Maybe I want to be able to click on a link and take me to all of the people in the city of Syracuse compared to the suburbs. So I think you're on the right track. We can almost get all the way to the point of going, yeah, I understand this project without the explanation, but keep on going on that, because I think that this is a very personally motivating project for you. And I think if you focus that passion into, well, how do I want it to work? All of a sudden, by the time you get all of that built out, you'll be at the point of being like, but wait, I know the JavaScript and I know the APIs and I know all of that stuff. So keep on going on it, get that find a therapist page, think about what you would like it to look like, build that in your HTML. Think about that grief talk, right? Doesn't need to work. It doesn't need to have real questions in it, but think about, hey, if I just make an example question, what does the page look like where all of the questions are listed out? And what does it look like when I click on one of those questions and get the more information about that specific question, all the threads and all of that stuff. So awesome. Love the project idea. We can totally understand the project with your explanation. Just keep up that momentum. And once you start getting that built out a little bit with either the Find a Therapist page or the grief talk, re-upload that in Canvas, and I can boost your grade up from there.
Okay,
Good work.
thank you.
Shay, go for it.
All right, so this ain't the capstone. I was just looking at the video of the last time we did the check-in. As you can see, I had nothing going on. I was just playing around with the HTML and stuff. So hold on, let me actually go out of this. Remove that. All right, so this is what I got so far. All of this in my way. Oh my, there's too much stuff in my way. All right, so after having that one-on-one session with Max and going through the ideas and stuff, this is what I'm going with now. I changed my idea, so it's mainly focused on home remedies. To me, I felt like home remedies is like what people would call a treasure trove of wisdom. It's something not many people would know. It's usually passed down from like families to generations and stuff. And like, to me, the more you know about certain things, you'll realize that there's a lot of resources that we know on a daily basis that can help us with different things. So this page is basically what it would show. The website, again, is a placeholder. And then it would basically tell about what it is right here. And anything that get posted, which I will have a post button soon, is basically when anybody, users, will come in and they want to post an idea or a remedy that they know that they family might use. It will come in here, maybe like a recommendation and stuff. This button shouldn't be here. I was working on the JavaScript, trying to get a mouse over. So if you hover over a certain spot, then it will pop this up. And this, on this panel, it would basically be the poster's comments. So if they had a certain comment they want to share or how they go about using it, they could put it right here. Or if somebody like me that would look at it and read somebody's idea and like it, I will post my own comments on how I think about it. So that was there. And then I got my buttons up here, just messing around with it. So this button would basically be like your recommended topics, things you would probably look for if you like herbal medicine, things that'll help you with that, or maybe some cleaning things, like anything that'll help you with your house will go on this page. Still same things. And then I got the profile page right here. Again, I was mostly just working on like the functionality of things. I just wanted to get like a basic layout or a mock-up just to make sure everything worked. Oh, wait, oops. All right, can't spell password neither. But yeah, just got that working. And then I got this, which is basically saying don't click on that because I got nothing going on in there. But that's basically it. On my next idea or my roadmap is basically getting the JavaScript stuff to work. Like, again, this is not supposed to be a button, it's supposed to be a mouse over event. So when you click on that, or if you mouse over, you can get the ideas and stuff. And I would want one on the other side too, so it could be like a link for whatever remedy you're looking up, maybe like an affiliate site that have more information on it, or maybe somebody else that posted something similar. You can also check their stuff out. And just after that, we'll probably get the profile page working. And everything else is going to be later on, like maybe on the next capstone, I get more details into it, but this is basically what I have so far.
Awesome. Love it. So I would say focus in on that interactivity element of it, right? I think focusing in either on the profile page or maybe on a post page, thinking through can they like the home remedy or the post that got created, or focusing in more on the comment side of things of what do the comments look like when they get posted? What does the form look like so they can type in the comments? And then what's the submit button, right? I think that's where you're almost there. We can get the idea, we can see it, but we're just teetering on website versus web app. So once
Right.
you get into that comment side of things and that profile side of things, I think you'll be over the hump and everything else will become a lot more clear. But I would say focus on that next, right? Of what are the last pages that I need to make where I can see a list of all the remedies. And then when I click into one of them, I can either hit the like button or comment on it, right? Or focusing on that author's thought side of things of what does that look like? Where do I go from there? So I think you're on the right track. But that last push of the couple screens that the user will actually be interacting with and typing in a comment, or maybe it's the admin side of things of, is there a screen where I can list a new home remedy and have it just show up to the users? Lots of different ways of getting to that interactivity, but that's going to be your next hump to get over. And once you do, I think the whole project idea will click of, oh, I understand exactly as a user why I would want to create a profile and add some information to this.
Yeah, I agree. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Great work. Natasha.
Hello. So, like everybody else, I definitely wanted to change my final project 73,000 times. Doug discouraged me. He told me I would have to get Max's approval. So I'm like, yeah, we're not gonna do that. We're just gonna stick with what we got. So I had this, like, I guess, idea that folks sometimes don't have the right social circles for celebrations, like things that should be major events in life, like weddings and graduations and baby showers. And I don't know, sometimes they just don't have the right people. So I was trying to link folks who are just willing to come in and just be a friend and sit down and, I don't know, have a drink or just be a participant of those types of things. Because why not? So I have not much, but let's see. We'll share a screen. I'll go with the desktop. So I just learned how to link pages today. I worked with that on with Doug like just before class. So there's nothing in the actual page yet, but I just styled most of the first page and got this nav bar going here. Again, not too much JavaScript involved just yet, but really just getting the concepts of it all down. These are not my terms and conditions. I got them from the free code website. I will be updating those because I don't want folks to commit to events and then come right back to the same problem where no one's at your party. So you committed to go, you got to go. There's going to be a contract involved somewhere. I lost it. I'm sorry. And just some popular states here, not all 50 of them. I do want to get a map involved. That's why I asked if Jason was the map guy. Let's see, where did it? I'm trying to find the actual page. I lost it. Okay. So really I was just focusing on the colors and the drop down list. Bootstrap was a huge help because that's where I got all the nav bars and those things from. But I guess working on the terms and conditions are important, and definitely styling the next 2 pages. But as far as the content is concerned, I'm not really sure what I want to do with that besides a kind of a registration form situation where you say, you know, what category of an event is it, location, just general things. Yeah,
So
not too far into it like everyone else, but this is what I got going on.
love the idea. Stick with the idea.
Okay.
The answer to your questions are not in the code. And I think that that is a very common thing of you go, well, I want to work on this thing next, right? And you're sitting there and the cursor's just blinking at you. And you're like, well, how do I? Don't worry about it. Pull out a piece of paper, go to a whiteboard at Common Space, pull out your notebook and go, all right, what do I need to host a party? What information do I need from the user? And you don't even have to draw it out, right? You can just go, everything that you just listed. Where's the party? What's the name of the party? Do people need to RSVP for it? Where is the party? Is this something that people need an invite link to get to, or is it open so anyone can see it, right? Maybe that's a feature that you add on down the road. Whatever it is, get it out of your head before you get it into the code. Because once you get into the code, your brain's in that mode, right? Where it's like, all right, opening tags, closing tags, and quotes and semicolons, and creativity goes out the window then, right? And you get so wrapped up on, well, how do I get my code to work, that you forget about what's supposed to be in this page. And so what I would suggest is, you're on the right track. You've got the foundation laid. You've got the pages created. We've got that idea that we're right on the cusp of understanding as the end user. But I'm like, but if I had just understood how to post the party or just understood how to join a party, then all of a sudden the rest of it would just fall into place, right? So that's what I would recommend, is do a little bit more planning. And then once you get into your code, build that out based off of what you've planned out. And once you do that, resubmit that in Canvas, and your grade will go all the way up to a 5 for meeting the requirements. You're there, you're teetering on the cusp, you're over that initial hump of having to create the files. Now we just want to get to that understanding of, I've got my main interface screens created.
Well, I just didn't really, honestly, I didn't still have the entire concept. So I'm building it while I'm still creating the idea itself. So I don't know.
Good progress. I love the idea. I don't need any more on I get the idea, right? You post a party and people can sign up for the party. That's all I need. That checks all the requirements for the capstone.
I do need a map with some pinpoints there, so you can at least see, hey, I'm going to be on that.
Step 3. Step 1, come up with the form requirements, or the join a party, host a party page requirements on paper. Step 2, build them out in the HTML. Then step 3, you can layer in that map, right? It's so tempting to go, but the map's fun. That's the JavaScript. I want to be building that stuff. Break it out into steps. Did I come up with the requirements? Did I get the requirements out of my head first? Because even to this day, when I'm building something, I'll build half of it out and then go, oh, there's a different requirement. I need to go delete half of what I just built because I didn't think through a requirement. So requirements out of your head first. Second, built in the HTML. And then third, now we can layer in our interactivity and get into maps and all of that fun stuff.
Sounds good to me, sir.
Good progress. Love the idea. I love the focus.
Thanks, Max.
Keep going.
It's been rough.
Palash, go for it.
Did you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So this is a movie reviews based like dating / friendship app. The goal of choosing this idea was so that I can arch over and showcase as many skills I can, and also like something big that I can keep building on after the boot camp. So first things first is I may need a new name. So if someone has any ideas, feel free. Cinepals is really off-putting to myself, honestly. Okay, so this is the homepage, and here's a little copy about like what the service is. I added some FAQs on there. What a user would do is land on here, read on it, and then register for it. So this is the registration page. They're gonna put in their name, email, gender, what they're looking for, their basic interest, which will also count towards their like their score to match other people. Here they can upload their at least 3 pictures, and once they register, they're taken to this page. Here you're going to review any movies that to find any matches. So first things first, you select a movie genre. The functionality is not ready yet. Then these movies are going to pop up using a movie API. I remember you told me the name of one, but I forgot on it. So we'll touch that. And then you go in, and every movie card is going to have the movie's image, the title, a little description, and you can like slide your rating. And once you are done with like 5, or I would think like once you're done with all of them, rating all of them, then you hit find your matches, and this page is gonna have all the matches that you may have. And once you are ready to go, you find someone compatible, you hit send a spark, and that's going to open a messenger. So now this may be a little too much on my plate for sure, but for MVP, I am thinking if I can get a little bit of functionality to work, like how people are going to match, like if I'm going to give 2 users scores based on their movie reviews, so if they love a movie gets them matched, or hate a movie gets them matched too, and all that. I am going to be working on the movie API call, and the conditions that are going to match 2 people, and the messenger part of it, and of course the sign in and registration data that needs to be stored, and the movie ratings data.
Lots of features. I know we will be getting to a chat interface coming up, and that will hopefully be light bulb moments, not just for you, but for other students as well, of, well, how do I type this in, hit enter, make it show up in a database, and then actually show up on the screen, right? So chat's coming down the road, but we get the idea, right? And that's what this check-in is all about. Of, I see the first screen, I click here, I get to the next screen, I do this thing on this screen, I hit save, and I get to this screen. That's what we're going for here, right? I don't think anyone in this Zoom room is looking at your project and going, I don't get it, right? And that's what we're shooting for. So awesome job, love the progress. Love seeing that you're like chomping at the bit to just implement everything that you're learning. And then all of a sudden it'll be the end of the program and you're like, wait, I need more time. I want to build out more things. So awesome work. Love the interface. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. I have a hunch it's going to get to it. Like I need more time for sure.
It happens. All right, Gagan, finish us out. We are going to stop with you and pick this up for tomorrow's class, just so we can go on break right around 7 o'clock.
Hello. So mine is nothing new. You guys know church website. I only finished I rewrote the code again just to make it, because it wasn't working properly. So oh sorry. I'm sharing screen? No, right?
No, you're not yet.
No, sorry. I messed up. Okay. Is it working now?
Yes, you're good.
Perfect. Okay. So I had to redo the code again because for some reason it wasn't working properly on other screens, which is working now. Hold on, let me hide this thing. Okay, and how do I get rid of this bar here? Okay.
There's a little arrow towards the bottom of it. If you click on that, it will shoot it down towards the bottom of the screen and get it out of your way.
Okay, all right, okay, get it. So I read that the whole thing is same thing as last time, but it's like, I guess works better on multiple screens now. I'm waiting for the admin page because I want to do it with the React. I don't want to rewrite that code again. I did it. I tried to do it. It didn't work out well. And also I have moved to New York City. So don't have much time to do any of this coding again, but I'm trying to get back as soon as possible. And yeah, so this is just, I mean, like, this is the basic, I think UI and UX, I guess.
Yeah, so I would say push for that admin screen, even though you're waiting for React to do it. You don't need to load it up with a ton of data yet, but you're still going to need an interface, right? And the way that we build that interface in React, still going to be using HTML, right? So some way to manage the quote of the day, or see what the get in touch submissions are, or be able to create a new guru, or right, that side of things is going to be really important, because that's what's pushing you from website to web app. So I would say push through it, even though you're waiting for React. Don't wait for that. Doesn't have to work. We don't need to do data calls. We don't need to be working with JavaScript or objects or arrays yet, but we do need that interface, and that interface is not going to change much in React compared to HTML. So I would say get that page built out, and then you'll be over that hump of having everything feel more like a web app.
Yeah, so I'm actually, sorry, I forgot to mention this, but I'm also working on this, making a mobile friendly. So if anybody want to use it on their phone. And for the admin page, like I said, I don't know how to make this work, but I will schedule a one-on-one with you, and then
Sure.
we'll talk about that.
Sure. Sounds good.
Yeah, so thank you guys.
Yeah, great work. All right. Unlike Ryan, I am going to go on a break at 7, and I am going to end class at 8:30, come hell or high water. So we'll go on a break now, be back at 7:25. When we come back, we will dive into the code side of things. If you're thinking, yes, I didn't have to go. No, you will go tomorrow. We're just breaking this up so everyone isn't sitting for hours on end. So be back 7:25. We will dive into some code. We will finish up capstone check-ins tomorrow. Sorry, Jason, that you don't get to see all of them, but I'm itching to get to code, I think, as much as you guys are. So break 7:25. When you come back, let's dive into an API review.
That shade was unnecessary, Max. That shade was unnecessary.
I just heard some feedback. All I'm doing is implementing feedback, agile implementation. That's all.
Listen, the fact that we were still sitting here willingly past 8:30 is crazy. So I'm going to break. Y'all have a good one.
All right, let's breathe a sigh of relief. We've made it through capstones. I know there are a couple people left. We will get to you tomorrow, unless you have booked with me, and then I will cross you off the list. We are going to dive on into a little bit of a vanilla JavaScript review. We're going to touch on a API that you guys have not used yet, and that is Owen Wilson's WoW API. Owen Wilson is a little notorious for how he says wow in all the different movies that he says it. So we are going to dive into using that Owen Wilson WoW API. So something that you have not heard me say in a very long time, we are going to open VS Code. See if I remember how to do this. We are going to go File, Open Folder. I am going to head into my desktop, my code. I'm going to make a new folder called week 13. Someone check me. We are on week 13, aren't we? Week 13, yes. And we are going to go into a new folder called day 1. And we're going to pop open our day 1 folder. We are then going to make 2 different files. One is going to be our index dot, oops. Get out of here, VS Code. One of which is going to be our index.html, which we are going to drop in our exclamation point enter. And we can make the title wow. And then we are going to make another one called script.js. Excuse me. We are going to go inside our body tag and put an H1 in that says wow. And we are going to link our script src to our script.js. We're going to throw a console log in here that says wow. We are going to go live and confirm not one, but two things. One is that we see our H1, our wow up here. And number two is that if we head into the console, we can see our wow in the console. I am going to share my live share. We will go ahead and get that started, and I will give you guys a minute to settle in. Okay, so I am going to drop a link to the API docs. I'm going to take on the challenge of covering most of what Ryan has covered, the important stuff that Ryan has covered over the past 2 weeks in 1 hour. You think I can do it? It's not everything that he's covered, but hopefully it will be a quick little review of everything, right? So first things first, in order to be able to use someone's API, we have to understand how it works. Oh, I just realized I shared the same link twice. Copy and paste fail. My bad. Okay, try that again. So documentation is saying, hey, I built this thing. It is an application programming interface. But to be able to understand how that interface works, I've got to give you some information about how to use it. So that is exactly what this documentation is doing. It is saying that you can read the full docs, but they've got a little summary down here that you can get a random wow. What are the two pieces of information that we need to know how to use an API? Where we're requesting the information and the response of what information is getting sent back. Hopefully you're drawing a lot of parallels here between New York Times and Owen Wilson. So API, we're going to send a request and we're going to get a response back. That response coming back is usually in JSON, but we got to make the request first. 3 different ways that we can make a request. Technically 4, you can do it in the terminal. There are a lot more, but 3 important ones that we know about. 1, if it is a GET request. What are 90% of all internet requests? They are GET requests. Why? Because every single time that you load an HTML web page in your browser, that is a GET request. We cannot emulate post and puts and patches and deletes and all of those methods in our browser alone. But because it is a GET request, I can actually click on this link, and what do I get? I get some JSON back. I'm like, okay, this is cool. What happens if I hit refresh? Now I get another random movie that Owen Wilson has said wow in. And we got the total wows and what the name of the movie was, and even clips of the movie. But we can emulate that. We can make this request because it is a GET response, a GET request. Okay, makes sense. We can test GETs in the browser. Second place we can test GET requests is over in Postman. God only knows what last request I made in Postman. Well, that's stuff we're going to get into later. Okay, so I open up a new tab. What Postman allows me to do is not only make GET requests, but change the request type or the method type to whatever I would like in here. We've also seen that we can do stuff with authorization. We can put things in the body. We can include things in the params. Postman is just the stepping stone to getting this working in our final resting place in our code. So what we can do is we can copy this URL, come over here, paste it, hit search, and now we can not only see the data coming back in JSON, but we can do stuff in here like seeing the video, getting the response, all of that stuff. Stop me at any point. Is anyone confused? Did I lose anyone? Is anyone blown away at this point? God, I hope not. Okay. Third place we can do it, and the most important place we need to be able to do it, is in our code. So I'm going to close out of Postman. I'm going to head over to my code. And because an API call is interactive, we need HTML to be able to show the data, but that's not where we start with our API call. We start with our API call in our JavaScript, right? It's interactive. We're doing something that the user is requesting us to do. We start in our JavaScript. And the place that we start in our JavaScript is with a fetch. Fetch makes sense. We're going out and we're fetching some information. We are requesting that information be fetched for us. Okay, what does fetch need to know? The only one thing that fetch needs to know, where is it fetching? It's going to go fetch from Owen Wilson. Okay. The problem is if we console log out this fetch, we don't see anything in our HTML yet. That's okay. The fetch is actually working. Where can we see it? Well, it's in our console log. So I can go into my console. And even actually, before I get into my console, I can take a peek in this network tab. And if I have the network tab open, when I refresh this page, I not only see my localhost loading and my script.js loading, I see this going to Randall. So if I click on that, in the headers, I can actually see not only the URL that I'm requesting, I can also see the 200 status code. I can see the date that that request was being made. And if I go down, I can even see the headers and some other information that the browser pumped in there for me. Why is that cool? That is cool because if I go into the inspect tab for a site like Amazon.com, I can see hundreds and hundreds of requests that are loading in the images. And if I peek in here, I can even eventually find information regarding all of the products, like the top deal that's showing up, what information is showing this content, all of that stuff. So that's just planting the seed for thinking about, if I want to use something for my project, maybe I want to go to someone else's page and see what API calls they are making. A lot of information in here. It is an art to dig through all of this data, but the browser is showing you what other requests it's going out to the network and fetching for you. Anyway, back to ours. I'm going to head over to the console and I get this promise pending. Why do we need a promise? They just seem like pesky. They get in the way. Why do we need promises?
So we can enter a value later using r.then. Am I saying?
Yes.
I
but-
know it's more to it. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're on the right track. You're not wrong. Kenny hit the nail on the head. It's because that it's asynchronous. The data is not available right away. Okay, well, what does that mean? When we're going out, especially in ye olden days of dial-up internet, it could take a while for that request to come back. Well, what if we want some other code to run? What if we want to say when they click on this button, put an alert up that says, hi there. Well, if that code is still out fetching, we don't want it to hold up the rest of our code. So what does that mean, asynchronous? It just means that it is going to run in the background. That fetch is going to happen, But the downside to that is, as developers, we need some way to be able to say, well, when that request is done, when the promise is no longer pending, when the promise actually has the data there, what do we want to do with it then? So what is the promise doing? It's saying, I promise that there will be data in here eventually, or an error. Okay, when that promise doesn't have the data in there yet, it is called a pending promise. Okay, now let's tap onto that. We want to be able to say, instead of console logging out the fetch, what I want you to do is go do the fetch, and then when you get that response, give it to me in this variable called response. We're like, yay, we got the data, we're all good to go. So we console log out the response, and I take a look at that, and now I've got a response. It's not promise pending. I'm like, all right, great, I'm making progress. I'm looking in here, and I'm like, none of this is screaming wow to me. Where's Owen Wilson? Where's the data? Where's the movie it's in? Where's all of that information? Well, it's stuck in the body here. The response that is coming back has information in it like status and okay and, you know, the URL that we made it to, but that's not the guts. That's not what we want. What we want is the information inside of this body. So there are two ways of accessing that. Well, there's probably more than two ways. There are two ways that I know how to access it. I can say response.text. And if I look at that text, I'm back to promise pending. I'm like, the hell, man, I just dealt with the promise. I just did my dot then. Well, what is response.text doing? It's given me another freaking promise, because parsing all of that text out could take time as we go. Rain, we're not at the JSON yet. That's the next step. So I'm in here and I'm like, all right, now I've got to deal with this promise. So I'm going to say return the response.text. And what I'm going to get back from that is then, once that parsing is done, then I would like to get the text, and I'm going to console log out the text. Now I come over here and I'm like, all right, there's the data that I'm looking for. There's that promise. And I can look at this data and be like, now we're looking at this and I'm like, what data type is this? Well, I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is an array, right? Because there's a square brace there. So I'm like, square bracket array. All right, if it's an array, I should be able to get out the first item in the array by saying text bracket 0. And what I get out is just a bracket. Like, huh? No, if I'm looking in this array and I'm a human, I can read this and I'm going, this should be this big thing in here. That's the item in the array. So I'm like, all right, maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe the computer and I are reading this data differently. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use the keyword type of. That type of is going to tell me the type of the text that we're getting is a string. And I'm like, no, it's not a string. It's an array. Well, it turns out the internet is really shitty about sending complex data types. All that the internet can send is text. But this text is very specifically formatted. You could almost say that it is using a specific notation that allows us to send objects using JavaScript. Oh, JSON, JavaScript object notation. Okay, we know how to work in two different directions. We can take an object or an array and stringify it. What's stringifying it? It's just taking that and turning it into a string. But Jen already hit the nail on the head. We can do that in reverse. When we get that string coming in, we can parse it out using the JavaScript object notation into either an object or an array. You think that it's always an object because it's JavaScript object notation. Turns out JSON is pretty flexible and it will give you an array back sometimes too. So how do we do that? Well, I've got my text here. So here I'm going to say const data equals my JSON.parse text. And now instead of logging out my text, I am going to log out my data in addition to my text. Now, what do I see over here? I see all the text like normal, but I also see this little drop down here. And if I pop open into that, I'm like, all right, now I'm making business. I'm in business. I see the bracket 0. I see the brackets. That's an array. And inside that array, I've got an object. Sneaky little JavaScript, putting objects in arrays and arrays and objects. And all right, we already know how deep that nesting can go, right? Peeling back the onion. Okay, couple things to note here. Why do I have to do JSON.parse and not do another .then? Well, that is because the fetch is returning a promise. So I got to deal with that promise. Then the .text is returning another promise. So I deal with that promise here. But .parse doesn't run asynchronously. Why? Don't know. The JavaScript gods have decided it. So that is the way it will be. Our JSON.parse code runs synchronously. And up until our fetches, almost all of our code ran synchronously. They clicked on this, we go to this function, we start at the top, we work our way to the bottom. When that code is done running, we're finished. Well, now that we're dealing with this, JSON.parse is not running asynchronously. So we can get the responses from that and take a look and see that that data is here. Now that we've got that data here, we can say something like bracket 0 dot movie and see a movie come out. Natasha, shoot.
Question. So when you had text and data in the same console log request, that was covering both ends. I don't even know if I'm asking that right.
It is showing us the text before it is parsed and the text after it is parsed.
Okay, so you were asking it for both versions.
Correct. Yes.
Nice. Thank you.
Any other questions up until this point? You guys don't have to code along with this, by the way, because it's a review, but if you are coding along, you're welcome to. Sorry, I should have mentioned that sooner. Okay, little rusty on the teaching. All right, so we got our data, we're parsing it. But I'm looking at this and I'm going, there's got to be a simpler way to do this because the internet very frequently sends back JSON. In fact, I would guess, I don't have the stats to back this up, but other than sending back HTML, JSON is probably the second most sent data format if we're not counting images. If we're talking about just text-based formats, HTML is probably number 1. I'm guessing JSON's got to be close to number 2. Why? Because we need to be able to communicate with servers. And that server may be running Python, it might be running Ruby, it might be running Java. All of those languages have different data formats. So they all use JavaScript object notation to say if I'm sending it back to JavaScript, if I'm sending it really to any other place outside of my own code, I'm going to use that object notation because Ruby and Java and Python and all of those web servers that we're talking about, all those different languages know how to not only parse JSON, but also how to stringify it. So the internet has kind of agreed that when we're sending data around, chances are there's a very good chance it will be in JavaScript object notation. Okay, but there's got to be a simpler way to do this. This text function is cool, but we know that this response is going to be in JSON. How do we know that? Well, one, we saw it in Postman, and we knew it was a string coming back in our console.log. But if we take a look at this JavaScript or at the WoW API documentation, it told us that JSON is coming back. So 99% of the time, we can look at the documentation and know what information, what data type they're going to be sending back to us. But if it looks like JSON, it probably is JSON. Goggin, what's up?
So like we're gonna use Postman most of the time. Do we have to do this every time we trying to fetch data, or we just can use the data from Postman?
Well, it depends. Oftentimes I skip Postman and go right to my code because where I want that data to actually be is in my code. So it's totally fine to go from here right into your code. However, oftentimes we can't do that because the API has some authentication information in it. We want to be able to adjust the query parameters. We might need to be changing the method. And for whatever reason, that won't work in our code directly. So we use Postman to kind of debug why it's not working in our code. And once we get it working in Postman, it's much easier to go back into our code and get it working. So oftentimes you'll just be sitting there banging your head against the keyboard and you're like, I see the documentation, I see it in my code, it's not working in my code. The fuck, man, why not? Going to Postman tends to be a good tool to get it working over there, figuring out how you got it working in Postman and then transitioning it into your code.
Yeah, because I was like, I didn't have much time to look into this, but I was trying to like do some APIs like calls, and every time they like always require like the key and stuff, and like right now is like the data is like open source kind of data that we can access anywhere.
Yep.
But I think like most of the APIs is gonna have to like go through the Postman, I think, because of the keys and stuff that they need.
Yes. And Postman is kind of helpful. I'm going to show you this. I don't know if Ryan did, and it's kind of a cheat, but once you get your call working in Postman, you can actually go over to this sneaky hidden little button over here. And it's like, oh, this is showing you how you can make this API call work in curl. And I think Ryan touched on curl or the terminal a little bit. But if you come in here, you can actually see that there's a whole list in here. And if we go down, we can look at JavaScript and pop open that fetch and look at what that's doing. That's breaking down some information.
That's the exact thing you did right there, like kind of.
What if we get a little fancier? What if we're like, oh, we're going to make a post request? Well, now look at what changed. My method post. Well, what if I need to send in a body in here and I'm going to send in some JSON? Well, if I come in here and say test, look at what updates over in my code. I get JSON.stringify. What's that doing? That's putting in my headers and my body. And what else is in this headers? It is setting up the application type JSON. Now, is this the exact code that I would have written? No, I can write this exact thing in about 4 lines and it's taken it 18. But if you are stuck and you're like, why is it working in Postman, but it is not working in my code? This can be a really helpful tool to go in here, see what it's doing, and compare that to what you're trying to do in your code. Any other questions? Corwin, I'm going to come over and Batman slap you. We are not touching Java. Java is a dirty word. We do not learn Java. We learn JavaScript. I have a special place in my heart for Java because it was my first real programming language, but Java is dirty compared to JavaScript. Gagan, what's up?
So basically you were saying that if we copy this code and just put it into our app, like whatever we're doing, it would work exact way, even if it's more lines, then?
Yes.
Okay.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because it is so frequent that we want to parse out the JSON from what we're getting back. We can simplify this down a little bit. We can tell it, instead of getting the text from the response, from the promise that then is running because we did our fetch in the first place, we can cut this down a little bit. We can say .json. That's a little shortcut that is going to save us the step of having to parse it down here. But now we're not really accurate, because this is still going to work. If I take a look in my console, I am still getting the name of the movie out. But this isn't really accurate. I'm not getting text back anymore. I'm really getting the data. And so it is important here, even though the computer doesn't care, for us to be consistent and saying, okay, what's then coming out of this promise? It's not really text anymore, it's the data. So you want to be careful about what you're calling these things, because data is inside the response that we're getting back. But what do we call that? Well, we can really call it anything as long as we're consistent of calling it here and here. But if you get into that formula of thinking, okay, I'm going to do a fetch, that fetch is then going to give me the response. That response is then going to go into the JSON and parse out the body of the JSON object notation to give us that data. Now, when we get down here and look of the type of our data, we see that it is an object, technically an array, but that's getting into specifics. Okay, any questions about any of that? Is this clicking? Is this clearing anything up? Is this pretty much a good review of everything that we've covered? Good? Okay. Now, if you attended office hours, I'm not exactly sure when Ryan covered this, but I think this is terrible JavaScript. Why do I think this is terrible? Because there are all of these .thens, and I'm like, all I want to do is have this code run, and I would like to be able to do that without getting 7 gazillion indentation levels deep. All I want to do is say, computer, I don't care that you're running this asynchronously. All that I want you to do is do this thing and just goddamn hold your horses. Wait until that data is back, and when that data is back, go on to the next thing. And when that thing is done, wait for it. I don't care that you're going to do it asynchronously. I don't want you to do it asynchronously. So what we're going to do is write this code a little differently. So I'm going to comment all of this out so we don't get confused. And what I'm going to do is I'm still going to take this fetch, and this fetch is going to run the exact same way. But what I'm going to do is store the result of that fetch in this thing called response. And if I console log out this response, I get my promise pending. We're like, we know this already, Max. Why are you harping on this? We already touched on this. We solved this with the .then. Well, any promise in JavaScript can be told, I don't freaking want a promise. I want you to wait. And once that promise is done running, shove it in response. How do we do that? We tell it, just await the fetch. So I save that, and I come over here, and JavaScript's like, all hell has broken loose. You have used await. I didn't know asynchronous code was coming my way. How dare you? You have confused me. I don't know how to wait on code. Like, oh, come on now. What JavaScript needs to be told is, hey, we're going to do something like make API call. And make API call is going to be a function. And we've seen functions before, right? I can put this code right in there. Because it is a function, I have to make sure that I call or execute that function by putting these parameters down here. But here's where what a new snippet might be coming in. What we can do is say, heads up, there's some asynchronous code in this function. And because JavaScript has gotten our async, it now knows, no problem. I'll wait for that to be done. So I save that, I come over here, and get my whole response. I'm like, okay, well, wait a second. This response looks a whole lot like the response that was coming out of my then. Well, if I can use the then syntax to get my response, can I also say that my data is going to await the response.json? So now if I console log out my data, I get my object. Now, to me, this makes a lot more sense. Hey, the computer's going to run something in the background. I'm like, okay, great. Now go do the fetch. It's running in the background, and I'm like, stop. Wait for that fetch to be done. Oh, wait. When that fetch is done, instead of doing a then and dumping it in the response, I want you to shove it in a regular, good old-fashioned JavaScript variable called response. All right, great. No promises. We just, you know how you like are solving an equation and two things cancel each other out on either sides? We just canceled out the promise equation because we just told it, wait, I don't care that you can run asynchronously. Hold up, wait for that data to be there. And when it is, shove it in response. Now do that same thing. When that response comes in, you're going to parse some JSON. That JSON could take a while to parse. Computer gives you a promise and you're like, screw your promise, wait for that promise to be done. And when that promise is done, shove it in the data. Now we get our data and I'm like, we didn't need levels of indentation here. We didn't need a bunch of .thens. We didn't lose track of when we can access the data inside the scope or outside the scope. We didn't get nested into for loops. All we did is say, I get promises. I get that they're important. I get that asynchronous code is out there. Just wait for it to be done. And when it is done, put it in a variable. Now that it's in the variable, we can just go about our business. The only downside to doing this is we just have to give the computer a heads up. Before we can use await, we have to tell it, heads up, this code may be asynchronous. Now, oh, Max, that's dumb. Computers should be able to do that. You're just using the await keyword. You are totally right. And in the newer versions of Node.js, we are allowed to use await without the async keyword. But that is coming down the road. Those are new versions of Node. Browsers don't quite support it yet. So all we do is we give it a heads up, async is going to run. You may run into some awaits here. That's cool. Then, because we put it in a function, we have to do that make API call. All right, Allie, go ahead.
I just have a question about, it's not really like related to this. It just has something to do with code in general. But so when you do the make API call, and because you made that like its own function, like in Python, when they do like the main, is that the same thing as that?
No, in Python, it would be closer to a def, a DEF, where you define a new function.
Okay. All right.
It's kind of similar, except in JavaScript, there is no main. It just starts at the top and reads from the bottom, right? Because Python is object-oriented, it needs to know, hey, there's all of this code in here. Where do you want me to start? I want you to start in the main. So JavaScript, while it can support object-oriented code, it is very rare for it to do that. And in fact, React started out as object-oriented and moved away from it. So it's a little different, but if you want to think about it, Python and JavaScript both call them functions. They both achieve the same thing and creating reusable snippets that take parameters in, except in Python, it's just you use the DEF keyword to define a function. In JavaScript, we use the syntax where we use the equal arrow.
Okay. So is like JavaScript an alternative to Python?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. But like, is Python like a wider encompassing language?
Yeah, no, yes. Those are
Like I'm trying to figure out like what's the difference between Python and JavaScript? Just
JavaScript can run in a browser. Python cannot.
Oh, okay, that's right. Python is strictly backend. Okay, yeah, all right. That makes
Or
sense.
desktop class or something with scripting. But yes, usually when we talk about Python in web development, we mean it as backend. Python can be used for more than just the backend, but in the context of web development, we would consider Python a backend language.
Okay.
If you
But
go to
can you,
OpenHack and you're like, Python's just a backend language, someone would be like, how dare you? I use Python to build a desktop application that can solve pi to the 1000th digit. And it's like, okay, yeah, you're right. You can use Python in other places, but because I am a web developer, Python is primarily used as a backend language. It cannot be used in the browser easily.
all right. So like, can you use, but you can still use JavaScript for backend? Like,
You can, and that is why we will be learning Node in about 5 weeks. Because
okay.
Node.js is the specific engine that runs JavaScript in the backend.
All righty.
Goggin, what's up?
So I wasn't there for this async, I think. Like this is the first time I'm seeing this. So the way you did it
Welcome to the dark side.
right. So the way you did it, like the async, I was thinking up like you made it clear that new version doesn't have to include that. But so every time we make a call now, like we're gonna have to include that in there for now on, or like
We're gonna see in React that's not as big of a deal as you think, but whenever you want to use the await keyword, you're either gonna have to put it in a new function and call that async and call the function, or oftentimes when you want to make that, it's already in a function. So all you need to do is it's in an existing function that you already have made. So all you need to do is throw the async keyword on it.
So what if we have like multiple like calls and they all include that? Does it like interfere with each other or no?
So the downside to using this await keyword is that it will, if I put another API call down here and I'm like, go get a website that's awaiting fetch from google.com. What's going to happen because we put this await keyword on there is it's going to wait for this data to come back. Then it's going to wait for it to be parsed. Then it's going to go get the data and console log it out. And then it's going to go to Google. So if we took this await out, it will now go make that fetch. And if we ignore this code right now, while that fetch is still happening, it could go out and get that from Google. So promises are really powerful in that you could say, oh, go get 4 promises. And when all 4 promises are done coming back, then go do this next thing. That's kind of unlocking the next level of promises, of being able to understand the asynchronous code and intentionally having 4 things run in the background if you wanted them to. But as novice developers, promises are kind of complex, right? And all we want to do is say, just wait for that promise to be done. And when it is, either then go do this next thing, or just wait for that promise to be done before you move on to the next one. So promises, I don't want to dismiss them. I don't want to say, just learn async await and that's all you'll ever need for the rest of your career. But in terms of saying, hey, I'm making this API call and these promises, I keep on tripping over them, that's what I think of just saying, well, just wait for the promise to be done, and then I can write it with JavaScript syntax that I kind of already know, instead of having to use this .then and getting lost in where these opening and closings are, where the indentation is, what scope do I have access to, all of that kind of stuff.
So you said like React is like it's gonna include all of this, right?
Yes.
So what you mean that it has a built-in feature for this, or what is it? Like that has a built-in stuff for this, or
you'll still be using fetch, you'll still be using the async await keyword. What React allows us to do is not have to generate the HTML in our JavaScript.
Oh, okay.
That we're going to get into not tonight, but definitely tomorrow.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Let's see.
Any other questions about this code in particular? Did someone get a light bulb moment at some point?
I definitely got a light bulb moment. Thank you so much, Max.
Good. We're almost over the finish line with this little example. Then we're going to create our first React project and then run away screaming until tomorrow. Okay, so we did all of this work but it's just sitting in our console. And I don't know about you, but I'm not going to suffer through the instructions of telling my parents how to open the console so they can see some of my code. I want that data to show up on the page. Well, there's two ways of doing this. I showed you the first way, right? We use document get element by ID. We created this thing called output. We used inner HTML and we made it show up. Someone asked me a great question of why don't we have to parse that string in our JavaScript so that the HTML knows that it's actual HTML. Inner HTML does that for us. That is all under the hood. JavaScript's like, you sent me something, I don't care what it is, I'm just going to make it show up. I'm going to pretend that everything you send me is HTML. Okay, in here though, I'm like, I have two ways of doing it. I can do it the way that Ryan does it, which is saying I'm going to create an element, I'm going to add the stuff to the element, and then I'm going to append that element into my HTML. That is totally valid JavaScript, and a JavaScript purist would tell you that that's a better way of doing it because you're working closer with JavaScript. You're working right in the browser. And I'm like, screw it. We're working on $1,000 computers. It's a string. I'm writing some HTML. The computer can figure out how that's going to show up. So that's the method that I'm going to use. So I'm going to come in here, and it looks like I want to get the movie to show up. And maybe I'm going to dive into the video here. But before I do any of that, I need to look at this and say, what data type is this? I'm looking at this and I'm like, they're curly braces, they're key value pairs, that's an object. I am wrong. Why am I wrong? Because what is the outermost thing? It is an array. What do we know about arrays? They are indexed. So this 0 here is telling me the index of that item in the array. So I am going to log out my data and I go array, index, square brackets, full stop. That is it. Whenever I see an array, I know it is indexed. I know I need square brackets. So I'm going to say bracket 0. I come in here and now I've peeled one layer of the onion back. And I'm like, all right, what am I looking at here? It's an object. What are the two ways that I know it is an object? One, it is using curly braces. And two, it is using key value pairs. What does key value pairs mean? It means that I'm not using an index, which is numbered. I'm using a key, which happens to be a string. Now, 90% of the time, because it is an object, because I know I'm going to access it via a key, I am going to use dot notation. But Max, you can access things with bracket notation in an object. Yeah, I know, and there are times that you need to do that. But for right now, 90% of the time, whenever we're trying to dig into the object, we want to use dot notation. But Max, you're going to use dot notation in addition to an index. Whoa, we're a layer further back in, right? So we're saying, what is the data type that we are dealing with now? It is an object. So because of that, I'm going to say dot movie. And what do I get out? The movie that I'm looking for. I also, so I'm going to shove that in a variable called title. And I'm also going to log back out my data 0. And I'm like, what do I want to show up? I've got all of this data here, and now I'm lost. I'm drooling because I'm pulling in the objects and the arrays, and I'm like, what am I trying to build? So I take a step back and I'm like, all right, what do I want the end user to see? I know all the stuff that I can get to, but I don't really need to tell them the release date of this movie. What do I want my user to see of this? I want them to see the name of the movie where he said it. And if I look here, there is a link to these videos. And I'm like, okay. Hypothetically, if I copy this and paste it in, there are some pesky quotes at the beginning and the end. So I'm going to take those out and hit enter, and look what I get, a little video clip. And if I click on that, you won't hear the audio, but that's him saying, wow. Okay, so what does that mean to my end user? To my end user, I would like the title of the movie to show up, the movie name, and I would also like that video clip to show up. So how would that look in my HTML? I come over to my HTML and I'm going to say H2 movie name goes here. And then I'm like, all right, how do I get a video to show up? Well, we've used IMG tags before. That's how we get an image to show up, and that's an SRC. But if I go and I say HTML video, W3 Schools is going to be there to help me out, and it's going to show me I use this code here. So I take this whole code, I copy it, I come back over to my HTML, and I paste that in. Now, I don't have a video in the OGG format. I do happen to have that video in an MP4 format. How do I know that? Because the file extension is MP4. So if I take that whole thing, take out the OGG, and paste in the URL that I'm getting from the API, I get a little movie clip. And if I click the play button, I see him saying, wow. So I'm like, okay. The problem is if I refresh this, I'm going to get the same movie clip up here, even though the movie changed down in the API. How do I fix that? Flush.
You use template literals and append, not append, like add that movie.video variable in there and then push it in the HTML.
So I want to get the video URL out. I'm going to say, I know that's in data bracket 0. And if I look at my console log, I'm like, all right, hold up. What data type are we in? Object, curly braces, key value pairs. What am I going into? I'm going into video. So what do? I come over here and I go, I'm in an object. So I know I can say dot video. And now I'm going to log out my video URL. And my video URL gives me all of this stuff. And I'm like, nope, there are 4 URLs there. I want the highest resolution one. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say dot 1080p. And Prettier loses its shit. And it's like, nope, cannot do that. And I'm like, but it's video, it's an object. Max said 90% of the time I can just use my dot notation when it's an object. Well, we just found the other 10% of the time. When keys have spaces in them, or they start with numbers, or we want to use a dynamic value for the key, which is usually when we use it, but starts with a number. So I'm like, oh shit. All right, I gotta change this. I'm going to my bracket notation. I save that, I come over here. Now I get my video URL. Almost over the finish line, I come over here and I say, all right, I am going to say, let my HTML output equal a new template literal. And I would like that HTML output to include all of this stuff that I put in my HTML. So I'm going to cut that and paste that down here. What does the template literal let us do? Why are we using backticks instead of quotes? Because we can madlib it. What do I mean by madlib it? I can actually take out movie name goes here and put my $ curly braces in and say, this is a line that I would like you to drop the title in. Where's the title coming from? It's coming from this variable. It's coming from the movie, which is coming from the 0 index of the array of the data, which is coming from the response, which we waited for and then parsed out the JSON. And that response came from our fetch, which we also waited for. Okay, so we do all of that. I save, and now nothing shows up. All right, well, the last thing I need to do is document get element by ID, and I want to get the, I don't have a place to shove this. So all I'm going to do is make a div, and I can call that whatever I want, API results. Now I come in, I get that div API results by the ID, and I want the inner HTML to equal the HTML output I just got. I come over here, I get the big year showing up, I refresh, I get hall pass. Last thing I need to do, I already did all of the work to get the video URL out. All I need to do is take out that URL, drop in my Mad Libs again, and drop in the video URL that is again coming out from my data. I save, I come over here, I get one clip, I hit refresh, and I get one other random clip out here. Does that mean that this code is better than Ryan's method? You could ask that at OpenHack, and half the people would go, this makes way more sense, do that. And the other half of people would say, are you crazy? How dare you use inner HTML? Use append child, use create element. What are you, a savage? Opinions. Developers are known for being opinionated. That is okay. All right, what are we thinking? Do we look at any part of this code and have questions? If I am losing you here, you will be lost for the next 13 weeks. Now is your time to ask questions because APIs don't go away. They only get worse. We start building our own, and then the only people we have to blame is ourselves because it could break in the browser, could break when we make the API call. It could break on the server when the server gets the API call. It could break when the server is trying to parse the data. It could be broken when the server sends back some data. It could be broken in our parse when we get the data back in our front end, or it could even be broken in the database. So we narrowed this down in here and we go, do we understand this? We don't have any control of Owen Wilson, but we can read the documentation, we can get it working in our own code. And once we get that data, we can format that into our HTML to make it show. Would you like me to share my screen with sound so that you can see the?
Yeah, because all I'm getting is him going. It's really weird.
Max,
Yes.
so I understand what you're putting down with the within the height of the video, but couldn't that be something that's put into CSS?
It can, yeah. And if we take this out, it will rely on the size of the file. So you'll see it's much bigger.
Right, like
And then
with Netflix.
if you wanted to, you could throw inline style in here and say something like the max width should be 100% of the window.
Okay.
And that would also work. And now you have something scalable as well.
Thank you.
Wow.
Better, Jen? Palash, what's up?
You made me forget my question.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so usually whenever we like JSON parse whatever data that we're getting, it's usually like inside like it's an array of objects, right? And
Or it can be an object itself.
right, yeah, but in this case, like if it's an array of objects, like does it make more sense to just go and square bracket 0, like choose the index 0 so that it selects the entire everything inside the array, or
Yes.
does it make more sense to like use for each and then kind of make it a little lengthier?
So
Like-
because there's only one item in this array, it's much better to do the bracket 0. However, if there was the potential for there to be more items in the array and we cared about each one of them, it would make more sense to do the for loop. So it depends. We're going to do the weather project coming up, right? And the weather project is going to give us 14 days worth of data. And we only care about 3 days worth of data. So it makes more sense to use those indexes and just pull out the pieces that we wanted. But if we wanted all 14 days worth of data, we would use that for loop and have them all show up. So it depends. There's not a clear-cut answer. It just is saying, hey, if there is an array and there could be multiple things in there, excuse me, do we care about those multiple things, or do we just care about the one specific one?
Gotcha. What if like the admins of the API change like a little structure on their end?
APIs are usually versioned, and you've seen that with the New York Times. So the New York Times, I think, is on version 3 or 4. When they change that data format, it is usually bad form to do that in a version that has already been released. So if the New York Times is going to change that and say, now we're going to return an array because we've got multiple pieces of information to return there, or hey, this used to be just be a string, but now it's an object because there's more data available about it, they tend to up the version number and say this is a whole new version that you're going to use with that data, that newer data format.
One more quick question. Like,
Yes.
how do we manage CSS with all this? Like, yes, in the New York Times project, I tried adding let's say background color or just text color to the titles of the books, but it won't take it. So do we?
It should. If I throw a class on here that says title, I can. I mean, I can make an externally linked CSS file, but for the sake of a demo, for quickness, I'll just throw a style tag in here, and I can target that class title that I put right here and make that color red, and the CSS will apply.
Will it apply also to the element if you just choose H2?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason it wasn't working. I'll just book a one-on-one with you.
It's very easy to get lost in your quotes, and because you're already in a string and you're quoting inside the string, so it's easy to get lost there. But yeah, feel free to book a one-on-one.
Thank you.
Kenny, what's up?
Never mind. I was able to fix it. I just forgot the letter P from my video URL thing for like the 1080.
Yes.
Once I put it in there, it fixed it. I was like, wow.
Nice.
So,
And
thanks.
Shannon, where are you seeing the 404?
So when I play mine in the console, I get an error.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I can give you the answer. I cannot give you the full answer. So what's happening here is that when the browser loads a page, it also not only loads that HTML page that you're on, it also loads the favicon or the favicon. I've heard it both ways. That favicon is this little symbol that shows up here. So you can see they've got Owen's face up here for the favicon here. What's happening is the browser is trying to go get the favicon, and it is not finding it because we don't have a favicon.ico over here. And so because of that, it's 404ing. It is a good example of sometimes error messages are completely fine to ignore. You won't hear me say that often, but in this case, it is fine. You could solve it by putting the little favicon in here. The reason why I'm not fully satisfied with that answer is because I don't know why it's happening after the video plays. Like normally that happens when you first load the page. It will tell you, hey, I couldn't find a favicon. I have no freaking idea why it is happening after the play button is clicked. But you could solve it by putting in a favicon, but it's no big deal. It's not actually going to break anything. And we could go on with this code and be like, oh, I want to put in another load different video button. And we could continue on with this. Right now, we're starting to see the power of JavaScript and what we can do, what we can interact with pulling in outside data. Tomorrow, you're going to dive into React. We are getting back into the terminal, whether you like it or not. We're making our first React app. We are going to do a to-do list app in React. And right when you think you're good to go with that, we're coming back to Owen, and we're going to make Owen again in React. It is 8:30. I am a man of my word. Go ahead, get out of here. You guys are done. We will dive into React tomorrow and also do capstone presentations for whoever did not present today and did not book a one-on-one.
Max,
Yes.
can I get a quick question, or that's for tomorrow and get the hell out of here?
No, go ahead.
Okay. For the favicon, would I add that into the title on the HTML?
No, all you need to do is it has to be a very specific file type. So if let me see if I can, like that's a PNG image. Will that actually download as? No, of course it won't.
So kind of like how we did the icons when we were doing like the MaxFlix app, we would go.
Yeah,
bring it
there
in.
are a bunch of these where you can upload it in a file, like a regular image, and when you hit download, it will give you the ICO file that we're looking for. So if you just take that ICO file and put it in the same directory of the index and the script.js, when you
Okay.
refresh it in, ooh. Okay, two things you need to do. One, you need to put it in that root directory. Two, there is another meta favicon.
Is it on your screen right now?
No, you have to add this one. You say meta rel equals icon, and then href equals favicon.ico. Oh, come on. Do I really need the type as well? I give up. The internet hates me.
Okay, tomorrow, React, HTML, and JavaScript put together, right?
You got it.
All right, later.
I have no idea why that's not working.
Can I also ask you a quick question and I can save you 20 minutes of that one-on-one, maybe?
Shoot.
Okay. So here, let me share my screen quick.
Yep, go for it. Sorry, I realized I wasn't sharing mine.
No problem. Okay, so here is what I tried with the New York Times was like I pushed all the images of the books in an array, and like one click of either of these buttons, it kind of like slides through those buttons. The only thing I couldn't get to work was the animation part of it. So what I tried was in my style CSS, I like declared this slide.image class and transition transform and like translate X minus 300. So what that did was on clicking off this, the image would appear here, and then like slide off, not like left to right. Like how do I declare a separate active class? Because also like once it added that class to this output div, all the images would start on the translate X negative 300 position, which is like left of the screen.
Yeah, there is an art to CSS animations playing nice with JavaScript. And unfortunately, that art also applies to React of getting it to play right as well. I use a framework called animate.css that helps with that. Let me make sure that that's the actual name of it. Yes. Animate.css. It is basically bootstrapped for CSS animations. With that said, you're on the right track. There is something that you have to do with either the starting class or there's another property that you have to apply. CSS animations are at the borderline of my knowledge in terms of I can get them working, but it requires a lot of fiddling with them. So it's nothing that it's something you're doing wrong, but it's a very common thing that is done wrong. It is very tricky to get them to work right, because CSS was always designed to be static, right? And then we layered in responsiveness with media queries, and it was like, okay. But then CSS animation is surprisingly one of the newest CSS concepts, right next to grid and flex. So there is something with animation start, I believe.
Oh, like using the keyframes and then animation start.
I think it is.
Okay.
And that may help you with the getting it to work. There's also animation duration.
Yeah, delay, duration, transition. I mean, so like, okay, like putting that aside, like what would be like the steps, sort of rubber duck, the steps, rubber duck version of the steps, what would that be? Like kind of like add a new initial class and then append a class, like append the style sheet with another class that translate XZ to left or right?
Well, there's animation iteration count and animation direction. I
Right.
wonder, wherever you have your animation name, throw an animation dash iteration dash count colon infinite.
Gotcha. Animation, iteration. Okay, that keeps.
That
Keep moving over and
may
over.
be what's holding it up, is the animation runs once and it thinks it's done, but telling it the iteration is allowed to run multiple times. That may fix the issue. The other thing may be that your animation has to be on the no, you've got it on the slides. That's where I think it would be.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, try throwing it in your slides.
Slides.
Oh, I don't know if it goes in slides or slide image.
Yeah. So what like basically what it was doing, it was applying this, what I was trying to do is this, apply this slide image upon clicking on one of these arrows. I was applying that to where to go? Here.
Probably in your
Here,
JavaScript,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, I was applying this to this class. So what it would do is it would add the class and then it would not, like I tried like removing the class in the same function, but it won't remove it. So
Let me try. I'm just curious now. Can you give me a remote?
yes. Also, I did not use that animation keyframes or anything. I just was like literally just adding the class.
Slides image. Where is image
That-
slider? But I want to look at
It should be like if you scroll down some more there. Here, yep, this is the entire code.
okay, so if I throw a class on here of your
slide image.
Slide image.
I think it pushed it to the left, like the element is like now present because it has like it translated it to negative 300% position.
Yeah, so what's your I think you need your transform start and your transform end,
Okay.
which is gonna get into keyframes, I believe.
Right, I see. Like it's gonna start at 300% and then end up at say 50%.
Yeah, so it's gonna do sorry, I'm cheating and well, not really cheating, looking at. So you do at keyframes and you say slide in, which you can call anything. And then you say it's going to start from your transform translate x negative 300. And then it's going to go to this at 0.
Yeah. It's gonna go left to right.
And then transition is going to be called slide in.
Uh-huh. There's like something up on line 46.
Oh, thank you. And then I'm gonna weigh up this.
Do we need to like add that class upon clicking of the button, like build it in the function? Like class list dot add.
No, it's got, let me try my original idea, which is
Origin.
the loop. What did I say it was? Yes.
It was animation iteration count, I think. Functional count. Yep, that one.
Iteration count and then infinite. I don't have a good feeling about that. Slide image. Start with slide in. Keyframe. Let's do, instead of transition, let's do animation.
Oh, gotcha. So you added that slide, now it's adding that slide image class to the image. Now, back then when I was doing it, it was adding it to the div that contains the image element. So
That should work.
right.
I think you just had the wrong property here.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
I that's not to say transition isn't a thing, but this appears to be
Working,
well,
yeah.
different image size, but that does appear to be working.
Right. No, that's perfect. Thank you. That's awesome.
CSS animations are kind of the bounds of my knowledge, so it's like I gotta play around with it.
Every time I Googled it, like all these guys on YouTube or whatever, and even like ChatGPT, like returned, they were using that CSS animation for it. Like, and they were doing the same thing, I think, that you did, adding that class to an element as soon as you hit a button or every 3 seconds.
Yep. And there are ways to get more clever with CSS animations with JavaScript. But historically, you couldn't use CSS animations. You had to do it all in JavaScript, and you would just update the DOM properties to get it to animate. And then CSS animations came out, and that was the better way of doing it. But then there's a limit to how much you can animate. And so now there's like this hybrid ground of like, do everything that you can in the CSS animations. But if you need JavaScript to control the classes or the timing, you can.
Okay, one last question is like, if instead of like sliding one image, I were to slide like 3 images at a time, and every time you click a button, 3 images, like where should I start? Like, you don't have to give me the total code.
You could do that. The way I would think about that is put the 3 images in a div and then animate that div.
Okay. And like every time I click a button, like 3 images show up.
Yes.
Okay. So like I'll be choosing like 3 elements from that array. The array that contains the
and put that in one div, and then put the animation on the div that contains the 3 elements from the array. Yes.
Perfect. Cool. Thank you. There you go. I saved you 20 minutes. You're welcome.
No problem. I'll see ya.